Business Talks discusses business within the community, sponsored by STCU. Well, welcome to a special edition of Business Talks, and special because I have a bit of connection with KHQ. I think it was about 14 years ago that I left KHQ to do some other things, and I was in sales there. And of course, you know, if you're in sales, you're not part of the talent group and everything else, but I found a very talented person, and this is Neal Boling. I'm happy to say a colleague in the business in town, but also a very good friend. And I was really pleased back on July 7th when it was officially announced that he is the 6th general manager of KHQ. Now I can remember, and I've met 4 others, but none of us can remember who the first one was, right? That was before I came to town and all the other things that go on. So I don't know if in another 50 or 60 years they'll forget you or not, but probably, yeah. Neal who? Anyway, Neal, thanks for coming today. And
thank you, Ken.
And I wanted to do a couple things today. I want to talk about your career, to kind of place where you've been over the years and so forth. And then I want to get into where KHQ has been for 68 years. And there are a lot of very unique things about that, being locally owned and so forth. One of maybe 5 or 6 stations like that owned locally around the country. And it used to be a lot more. Right. Yeah, and we'll talk about that. And then I want to talk about where you're going to take the station. You know, put out all the secrets you're going to do, because I know the other stations won't be watching, okay?
Well, I might have some breaking news for you then.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Suddenly we jump to the 3rd act, right?
Yes, yeah. Okay, well, let's go to breaking news then.
No. We gotta start at the beginning,
do it my
right?
routine.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. First of all, I know you are originally from your first or second job from the Florida area and so forth, and you've been in a couple of other states, including the state of confusion, I'm sure. but the fact is, you are really respected across the country for knowing about content and broadcast and all of that. And so we really are very lucky to have you here in Spokane.
Thank you for saying
But your background, tell our audience a little bit about who you are and how you got and why you went from doing news to producing and so forth.
Well, it all started on a dark and stormy night.
Lord.
I'm one of those rare lucky people in life who really knew what I was going to do at a very young age.
Okay.
Age 4 to be exact.
Really?
My dad was very routine driven, and every night we would watch the local news in Tampa, Florida, where I grew up.
Okay.
And followed that by his preferred choice was ABC World News Tonight with Peter Jennings.
Okay.
And even at the age of 4, I was totally fascinated with the graphics and the presentation, particularly at the local news level.
Yeah.
And I think it was 4th grade, the cafeteria at my elementary school would turn out the lights if it was too noisy in the lunchroom.
Okay.
Well, I had a friend where we would play games. We would hum the local news music and try to have the other one guess what station it was.
Oh, no.
And actually what day part of the station. So it was the morning cut of music and so on. 4th grade, you know, yes.
You were probably talking about day parts back in 4th grade,
yes,
too.
I'm that big of a nerd, really. So the news bug really bit me early.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just news and a passion for journalism. It was the whole presentation.
Yes.
It was the whole enchilada.
It looked fun.
It really, yeah. I'm like, how am I going to be a part of that? And you know, when you're young, you only see the news anchor, and you're mesmerized with the behind the scenes. Like, is it the news person, the anchor, making this up as they go along?
Yes, right. Sure.
You know, you don't understand that there's a teleprompter or a producer behind the scenes or any of that magic. So I got into high school, and I was part of the one of the very first TV production classes that my high school had to offer.
Okay.
And I loved it. I was just totally enamored with it. I was probably still bigger on the newspaper side, though, because I also loved the newspaper. Yeah. And I was the editor of my high school newspaper.
Which was really the news media of the time still.
Still,
okay.
yeah, at that point. And I was just bitten by the bug. And I got to college and I was thinking, I went to the University of Florida, which has a tremendous broadcast program. Okay. And I thought, I'm still going to go in this anchor direction. I was wondering if I shouldn't explore the newspaper thing. Yeah. And I'm honestly glad I didn't, for obvious reasons.
But you are a good writer.
Well, thank you. Good. Yes, writing is my passion. Okay. I love it.
Okay.
But when you get into, actually, we had our own TV station. It was a PBS station that had news product, and it was where it was a training ground. We could just kind of cut our teeth there. And I loved it. I loved anchoring. I hated reporting, though. Reporting was just such a major drag because, you know, people want to hear from real people. They don't want to hear from public information officers and you know, spokespeople from companies.
Right.
They want to hear from, you know, the Joe Schmo on the street.
Yes.
And Joe Schmo on the street doesn't like to talk very much.
No.
You know, it's if they're a witness to an accident or some kind of you know, investigation of malfeasance or something like that, they don't want to go on camera.
That camera and microphone can be a little intimidating.
Very much so.
Yeah.
So I am terrible at trying to convince people to go on camera, and I was miserable as a result. I'm just like, this is just not what I'm cut out for. And somebody said, well, why don't you try producing?
Okay.
And I thought to myself, producing, you know, I see that in the end credits and movies, but you know, I've really never looked into it. But I discovered that producing was it was a dream because think of yourself as the architect of a newscast.
Yes.
And everybody else has to follow this blueprint that you create.
You just don't have to be in front of the camera.
Exactly.
You give it to somebody else.
Exactly. Yeah. So I fell in love with producing, and you know, a producer, anchors get a lot of credit, but anchors don't write 99% of the stories that you would see in any given newscast.
Are you saying that most of them are rip and read?
Well, they all read it, but they put their personal touch on it.
Right.
But they don't, you know, fact check it. They don't, you know, come up with it from the get-go.
Good.
So I discovered this is my path. This is what I'm going to do. And I interviewed for my first job at WTSP in Tampa, which is a CBS station. And back then even, it was very unusual for somebody right out of college to land a job in a big market. And Tampa and Seattle are about the same size in terms of their markets.
Right.
And interesting, because this kind of comes back to my GM thing. I remember I interviewed with the general manager, which was also unusual. I was not prepared to interview with the general manager of the station that has, you know, 200 plus employees for an associate producer job. Okay. It's kind of like overkill.
You're down the rung a bit. And
it's like the president of the United States interviewing for, you know, somebody who works in the IRS or something, you know.
Right, yeah.
But when I was in his office, he started to explain to me that, you know, he was actually a production assistant way back in the day. And he was like, you know, this is what I want to lead one day.
By the way, did you invite all the trains to come through downtown Spokane right now?
Well, it is Kent Adams Street here, so, you know, it's going to be noisy.
Yeah.
So I, listening to Sam, that was the general manager at the time, and thinking, this is what's possible. Not only am I, you know, in this mode of, okay, I'm going to go and produce and that, but now I kind of have a career blueprint to follow.
Okay.
And this is what I want. I want this office, you know.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And my office now is nicer, by the way.
Okay.
So that was kind of the beginnings of it, and then I just started kind of incrementally climbing the ladder, and that means executive producer, that means news director.
Right.
And that KHQ brought me here 10 years ago as news director and marketing director, kind of rolled into one position.
Okay.
And at the time when I was interviewing and everything, I was keenly aware that the ownership is a family-owned entity. And I was very frustrated with my experiences working in a big media conglomerate because it's very top-down. It's very, you know, we decide in Richmond, Virginia, what all the newscasts are going to look like and that sort of thing.
And that's really happening now across the country.
Exponentially more so. So I came here with kind of that expectation, well, this is going to be liberating because, you know, decisions are made at a local level. I can try things, I can be creative, I can experiment and be out of the box. And all of those things have been true and more. And my growth curve, I didn't expect to continue to grow here because you just never know. But boy, you talk about fitting like a glove, you know, the culture of our organization. And also equally as important to me, you know, I've been married 21 years now and I have 2 kids. I needed a great place to raise my family. And the secret is out now with Spokane. But back then, 10 years ago, people are kind of like, well, where is Spokane? Isn't that a suburb of Seattle? It's just ideal. You just can't ask for a better place.
Did you worry at all 10 years ago when you came to town because it was a family owned and you knew what was happening across the country? That was really about the start of everybody, a few companies across the country own everybody.
It was right before then. So this humongous amount of media consolidation has
that's really been the last 5 to 7 years, 8 years?
Exactly. And almost at a breathtaking speed. You know, and it's not just media companies owning broadcasters. You know, the Disney takeover of ABC was a lot longer ago, but now you have Comcast owning NBC. You know, Fox has actually gone in a different way and they've sold off some of their assets and now they are just strictly broadcast or cable, Fox News. But the consolidation has been astounding, and my personal belief is it's not good for for the industry, for the viewers, or anything like that. Because you look at newspapers, getting back to that topic, by and large, most newspapers now, like 90-some-odd% of them, are owned by these hedge firms. And hedge firms, they don't care about journalism.
They look at the dollars.
It's all about milking, you know, these entities for all that they're worth. And that is why we are so fortunate in this community to have a family-owned and operated station. Now, we're not the only ones. KXOY is also privately held by a family, Liz Burns, but they're based in Madison, and that's kind of the difference, is that we are, I mean, my ownership is about 2 blocks away.
I was going to say, they're down the street. They know what's going on. They were involved with us out at Mirabeau Point. They're involved downtown in what's going on. They own the paper as well. Their livelihood depends on a thriving Spokane. You know, they've got skin in the game, where other entities, Tegna that owns Creme, for instance, as long as it doesn't hurt them financially, they can start newcomers out and all the other things, you know, that go on and so forth. They don't have to be as careful. We're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, I want to go back and talk a little bit about the history of KHQ. And they'll run some B-roll while we're talking and so forth about, it was like the first station here, right?
Definitely was.
And I remember for years until they built this right down the street here, and I didn't come to work for KHQ until after they'd been here for a year or so. Fortunately, in the sales department, I missed 9/11 because I know what happened to everything at every station around the country. But you know, it's an interesting history, doing a lot of firsts and so forth, especially being locally owned. And we're going to take a quick break and we'll come back and talk about that. I'm here with Neal Boling, General Manager of KHQ.
When we opened the doors the first day, we started with a counter full of maybe a dozen selections of a dozen cupcakes. We sold out and it just went crazy from there. I'm Sally. I run Sweet Frosting's Blissful Bake Shop in downtown Spokane. It's almost 40 years of baking for me. We now do between 1,000 and 2,000 cupcakes a day. The variety of cupcakes is kind of like the variety of services that STC provides for us. Since we opened this site in 2014, they've been our banker. We are producing for 4 stores right here, so we have 35 to 40 employees at any one time. There's an STCU close to virtually every one of my stores, and every time I get a new employee, that's the first place we send them. STCU is such a good fit. It's just so convenient for me to have them as neighbors. They are always so pleasant and always so helpful, and we have a lot of little needs. They've always been behind me 100%, so it's a good thing to have that partnership.
Back with Neal Boling, the newly appointed general manager of KHQ. You were the station manager for what, the last 4 or 5 years?
6 years.
6 years, well, who's counting? You. And we're going to talk about that role and what's coming up, because now the buck stops there. It's kind of hard to pass the buck. And when you've said, well, maybe we can do that at some point, but I've got to ask the family, okay, now it comes with you, but we'll get there. Let's talk about KHQ, because I remember the stories of the news reporter from the airplane that would drop the film up on the South Hill, which is now ESD 101s. They bought it, and now, I mean, there's just so much history with KHQ, the first and so forth. So take me back to early, and I think early, weren't they even in a tent?
A Quonset hut is what they called it.
Yeah.
It was very, very small. And then they built the building on Regal, which Regal is a good word for it, because, you know, it's a total throwback to the mid-century modern, the glorious lobby with, you know, the banister and everything.
Yes.
I've actually not been in that facility, but everything I've ever heard and the pictures I've seen are just incredible.
Yeah.
But it was in the late 90s when the world started moving towards digital.
Yes.
And the 4th general manager of KHQ, a gentleman by the name of Lon Lee, said, you know, we've got to position ourselves to be digital.
Yes.
And do we spend a whole lot of money gutting this concrete bunker, you know, to run wires and recable everything?
Which, by the way, did not have a very good operating air conditioning system.
That's what I hear.
My neighbor, who shared a driveway with me, is Dan Kleckner. Perhaps you've heard of him. And during the summertime, he would leave to go to work in the tie, loosened. His sport coat would be left in the car and in shorts, because the studio was hot. And in those days, the lights were not as comfortable as they are today.
Right.
But the air conditioning was awful.
Yes, and we're fortunate that we've upgraded that.
Yeah, well, that's good.
But, you know, Lon really set the pace in terms of that technological superiority. That was one of his kind of culture values that he instilled within the organization. Yes. So you have this legacy already. First television station in Spokane, first color TV signal in this area. But by the time he arrived, there were no computers. We were kind of in the dark ages as a company or a station. And he set out to change that dynamic. And one of the first big splashes that he made was to secure the use of a satellite truck. And he purchased it brand new. And those are actually built in Tampa, Florida.
Okay.
So I've actually been to that facility. So that was 1992 that he got the region's first satellite truck. And Lon is a splash machine. He likes to make a big splash with people, and he kept it all very secret, flew engineers down for secret training and everything, and then they drove back, and some of the viewers might remember back in that day, the live shots that KHQ was doing across the country as they were bringing the sat truck to its new home.
If I bought that darn thing, I'm going to use it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, I love it.
But amazingly, 2 weeks after we brought it here, Ruby Ridge happened.
Yes.
And so basically NBC took over the satellite truck, and for a considerable amount of time, as everybody remembers, Ruby Ridge took quite a while.
Yeah.
So that kind of set the pace, because then that told everybody within the organization, you know, we're for real. We're gonna take over. And this station was not good in the early 90s. We were a pretty distant number 3 at that time.
Right.
And he laid an incredible foundation, I think, for our operation.
Yeah. And
got us to where we needed to be. And then
Gonzaga basketball.
He was the architect of that deal.
Yes.
And you know, his philosophy on things was to make KHQ totally integrated in the community, you know, which supports the values of our ownership.
Right.
We are going to live, breathe, drink, eat Spokane
Yes.
and North Idaho and the surrounding communities. And part of that is broadcasting lilac parades and Gonzaga basketball, these big events which essentially train the staff and keep those skills sharp for those times when you have big breaking news coverage or,
Yep.
and we've had several even in my tenure here.
What was the program? Give Me the Mic or something like that?
Yes,
Yes.
That was more of a promotional vehicle,
Right.
you know.
In fact, I worked here at the time, and I remember, and Lon would say, it's part of keeping everybody active.
Exactly.
And fine tune that everything works. And if it doesn't, we can fix it between the next emergency or whatever. And yeah, he was quite a futurist.
He really was. Now, the interesting thing, Lon will tell you, he feels like the Navy admiral that retired on December 6th, 1941, before everything changed for the Navy, you know, because it was right about 2007 when he retired and still my boss, Patricia McRae, the president,
Right.
took over. And you want to talk about just seismic shifts everywhere in the industry, not only from the consolidation that we talked about earlier,
Right.
but also social media.
Yes.
You know, which
yes.
nobody thought of social media in 2005, 2006, even 2007. I mean, it was
Right.
like people had heard of MySpace,
Yeah.
but
yeah.
you know, media organizations aren't going to use MySpace.
I haven't heard MySpace mentioned for years.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
But you know,
Yeah.
that when I think of social media in the early days, that's what I
Yeah.
you know, I think about. So not only that, but you know, the DVR became more prevalent.
yes.
So people are recording newscasts, and that presents a challenge with advertisers. Cable, and you know, this was still going on with Lon's day. You know, 500 channels on
Yes.
cable.
Yes.
And then we've seen other shifts in terms of, you know, the cable networks with, you know, leaning one way or the other politically.
Yes.
And the casualty to different brands. Like, you know, I'm forever fighting the notion that, you know, with us being an NBC affiliate, the
That
longest
you're part
tenured,
of mainstream media.
right, we're,
Okay.
you know, how associated with MSNBC are we?
Right.
And the
right.
answer is we're not.
Right.
But actually, a couple of years ago, I had the opportunity to grill Lester Holt pretty hard because I'm like, when you have your talent, you know, your reporters appearing on MSNBC, which clearly has a left-leaning agenda,
Right. Right.
that damages our reputation
Yes.
as local affiliates.
How did he
because
answer that?
He challenged the notion that it was damaging, that all they're doing is going on and presenting the news.
Yeah.
You know, I get what he was saying, but still, perception is reality.
I was going to say that isn't the perception out there. Okay.
Right.
And he can try to justify it, but that does nothing for the viewer or
Exactly.
the viewers. Okay. I mean, we all know which cable news system supports what. Okay.
Exactly,
That's
yeah.
loud and clear.
It's not a secret out
No.
there. And yet local news, we pride ourselves as an industry with local news of being unbiased
Yeah.
and impartial with things. Political bias has no place in our operation
No.
here.
But you and I talked about this the other day, and that is, I don't see bias locally very much at all on any of the local stations who, while affiliated with ABC, NBC, or whatever, what I see, honestly, are inexperienced reporters. We used to get the second or third tier out of college would go to Missoula, Montana, and then they might come to Spokane and from here go to the next step up. Today we're getting right out of college. They don't have, and so they come here from whatever university in terms of background, and they understand the skills sometimes about how to light and how to, how to do all the things and so forth, but they don't understand anything more than the press release that the director or the, assignment editor has given them to go out and do the story. They don't have that history. And that's what I think is lacking on all of the stations, yours included. Okay,
Every station
but that's
across
reality,
the
isn't
country.
it?
Yeah, because now it's not just Spokane that's getting college graduates. They're going directly to big markets like Seattle now.
Really?
Which is truly frightening.
Yeah.
our industry is not sexy like it was in my
No.
childhood. You know, kids are not watching local news like their parents did.
Yes.
And therefore, they don't even understand that this is a career option for them.
Yeah.
Or they're thinking, well, I'm going to go work for BuzzFeed or Vox
Yeah.
or, you know, Vice, some of these hip, trendy digital outlets or whatever, which carries its own kind of considerations.
Yeah, you got to watch out for those internet-based TV stations. And
yeah,
stuff.
exactly. Yeah. So, you know, we get them young.
Yeah.
And they don't have a background with civics education or anything.
Right.
You know, they don't know how laws are passed for the most part.
Yeah.
So we spend the first year generally with our reporters, and this has been the case for about 15 years now, totally, you know, lording over them and, you know, with them in lockstep about everything because they're babies really in this industry and they need to learn.
And I'm not saying they're not trying hard and everything else, because their future depends on it if they want to grow and so forth.
But there's an interesting thing too. We talked earlier about Lon and his retirement when things got really challenging. He kept people busy because back then you had to worry about one TV station, KHQ, and maybe a couple of newscasts along the way. Now these reporters that we hire, they have to handle everything with social media because that's the audience expectation.
Yeah.
They have to have a separate digital story, which requires a completely different skill set in terms of how to write and prepare those.
Yes.
They have multiple newscasts. They have multiple channels. We have SWX here, which is a local sports network.
Right. You got Blake doing the weather at night live on Facebook.
And yeah, it's schizophrenic.
Yeah.
You know, there is no downtime anymore.
Yeah.
So these big events and you know, it's almost like we don't have time for those anymore.
I've got a question for you to ponder. So your first experience was with somebody who became or was the general manager? Okay, well, so was mine when I first came here. I sat in with Lon before I was hired. Something went wrong in my career here because you're now the general manager and I just own an internet TV station.
Well, someone positioned very well for the future, I might add.
Yeah, thank you, thank you. All right, in terms of history, what have we missed? Anything?
The only other thing I would probably add, and this kind of dovetails on your most recent point here about sitting in Lon's office. When I was interviewing for the job here, I asked Lon, because even though he was retired at that point, they still connected me with him to kind of pick his brain and allow him to pick mine.
Great guy. He and Patricia both are great people.
Totally. But I asked him, I said, you know, Lon, I look at the Coles company, which also at the time owned stations in California. We're now in Montana instead of California. And I see that the senior managers, the general managers, and yourself included, don't come from a sales background, which is unusual in the industry because pretty much like 95% of all the general managers of TV stations in America come from a sales background. And I said, why is that? What is the philosophy there? Understanding I'm from news, and so this benefits me. And he said, you know, Neal, the way I look at it, the most important role for a general manager of a TV station is the interface with the anchors, because they are the face of your station.
Yeah.
They are the ones that are recruiting viewers, and the viewer has to be very comfortable with them, make that connection, or else they're not going to watch you.
98% of the audience out there doesn't know who Neal Boling is.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
But they do know Stephanie and Dan.
I'd say 99.9.
Oh, okay. Well, I was trying to be kind.
And so he said, who do you want to sit across from the table when it comes to negotiating a new anchor contract? Do you want the sales-based general manager who's going to say, this is a 2% raise right here. You know, nobody's getting a 2% raise right now. You should be happy with this and go.
Yeah.
Or do you want the general manager with a news background who's going to say, look, Dan Kleckner, this is how we're going to win. This is how we are going to dominate the 5 o'clock news, you know, in the next couple of years and make you the go-to source in this market. That is the way you talk to anchors. You don't talk to, I mean, everybody's motivated by money, but it's that competitive.
There's that ego there. I don't care who you are.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah.
And that was profound. That was a really interesting statement on the philosophy.
Well, before we go, one of the things I want to say is that all of your newscasts are good, but your new one is spectacular. Okay. Your 6:30 with Sean is right on point. I think I texted you 14 minutes into the first program that night, and said, this is a winner. And probably because it's more to the point, quick, it's about business, it's about what's going on downtown. The pandemic has helped a little bit in terms of the topic and so forth, but that is a fantastic program. And so congratulations on moving in the right direction, I think. Well, and that's moving to the future based on what you're on, which is broadcast, okay?
Exactly, you know, and the interesting story behind that is our longtime director of programming retired in June.
Yes.
Mike Duggar.
Yes.
And we can thank him for Wheel of Fortune and Jeopardy and all of those shows.
But,
well, I've taken over for Mike. That's just part of my daily responsibilities.
One of about 6 responsibilities, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we have been placing essentially reruns of Jeopardy in that 6:30 time period. And we did that. We moved to news when COVID happened because there was just this insatiable demand for information. But the newscasts were getting stale, repetitive, and we were the only ones without a footprint at 6:30 in this market. We thought to ourselves, you know,
you could own it.
We could own it, but we're going to have to do it differently. We're not going to just be able to rehash 5 and 6 o'clock
Exactly.
news. We need to put this with purpose. And it just so happens at the time, Sean Owsley was stepping down from the morning show, where he's been on a morning shift for 21 years. And we just didn't have a place to put him. You know, we love Sean, and he's immensely talented. But the spokesman had an erroneous headline that he was retiring. He wasn't really retiring.
He was just tired.
Yeah, he was just tired.
Yeah.
So we started talking. It's like, let's not waste this opportunity.
Yeah.
Before he goes out the door, let's see if we can pivot quickly, which a privately owned company and station can do.
Yes.
And that's what's fun. That's when you can create something out of nothing. And create a show that is unlike really any that I've ever seen in the country, and serve the viewer needs in that moment. And that's what we've done here with that
show. A great job. Sean knows I think it's the best, and so forth. And he's promised to come on my program soon. Something about COVID came in his way, and he had to be at home. You know, that excuse is over now.
Yeah.
Okay, so when you get back and see him today, would
some
you remind
pressure
him that, okay.
Yep, you got it.
No, he's a good guy. You've got good people, which is part of your owning it too, is that you have a Dan Kleckner, you have a Stephanie Vigil, you have morning people and so forth. Great to see another Adams in the morning, okay? That means a lot. People trust those people. Either they do or they don't. If they do, you've got them. They're going to stay with you. We're going to take a quick break and come back and talk about what's in the future for KHQ right after this. Thanks.
My grandfather started the company in 1919 here in Spokane, Washington. I'm the 3rd generation of the company. I really love the people, and I like the challenge. With concrete, there's always a challenge, and there's a timing issue. So fast and furious is good for me. Millions of yards of concrete and millions of hours of labor. We've been on a steady growth curve for a while now, and we want to continue that. You can expect another 100 years from the William Winkler Company. Well, we have a great group of about 150 people and 100 years strong, and we got there by caring for each other and caring for common goals. And STCU, when they came in, they rode right alongside us. Their core values are similar to ours, and they really treat us like family. It's a real win-win for us. With the help of STCU, we've been able to finance and build this building. We couldn't have done it without the good people and partners like STCU.
Well, welcome back. Neal Boling, General Manager. Just a few weeks.
Yes.
A couple of weeks, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, one of the perks of having the corner office, as you call it, is, what is one of the perks that you have immediate access to?
A bathroom.
A bathroom.
Yes.
Okay.
The only place I've ever seen where a GM's office has a bathroom, its own private bathroom. Yeah.
Okay.
So that doesn't stink, you know.
A
big time saver, I might add too.
Yeah, I'll bet. Yeah.
Yeah, it's you know, this facility is coming up on 20 years old now.
Yeah.
Which it's still, from what I've seen in nationwide, is still one of the most beautiful broadcast facilities.
Any of the carpet been replaced?
Not yet.
Okay.
No.
because when I was there, and you know the story, and it's probably still true today, you're not allowed to have drinks and things and eat at your desk except things that are closed and so forth. And Lon was going to make sure that the carpet lasted at least 20 years, and it sounds like we're getting there.
We are.
Yeah, a few spots, because I think they're carpet squares or something that can be
replaced a couple through the years,
but not the whole.
Yeah. It's really held up extremely well, and the vision to introduce a digital news gathering facility has paid dividends in a world which is so digital now.
Yeah,
you know?
Absolutely. Okay, you're the man in charge now. All right, what can we see that's going to be new and different on KHQ as you compete with locally what's going on? And all of the stations since I left KHQ 14 years ago have gone down in news numbers and everything else. That's happening across the country and so forth. Fortunately, I'll put a little plug in. Our station is the only one that's rising, right? Okay. Did I say that? Oh yeah, probably you did. But what will you do to either maintain or increase viewership? Because that's the numbers count when you're talking to advertisers and so forth. And so in that area and everything else, what will be new other than the 6:30 program that you're doing now? What can we see in the next few weeks, in the next few months?
Well, you know, viewer attrition is going to continue no matter what, just because there's Netflix, Hulu, you know, Amazon Prime, Disney Plus now, Peacock just launched, which doesn't make us very happy at the local level. You know, our network essentially going around us for a digital streaming service. But the thing is that we fight every day to stay relevant.
Okay.
We cannot lose our edge for 1 second.
Yeah.
And I think probably one of the things I'm most proud of, and I do not take credit for this, because whenever you take credit for great ratings, you also have to take the blame when.
So don't take credit.
Yeah, exactly. But we have been surrounded by a magnificent team that has fought and clawed. And you know, when I arrived here 10 years ago, there were some newscasts where we were in third place.
Okay.
We win every newscast, we win every time period throughout the day, hands down. And in some cases, our morning show, for example, has 4 times the ratings of the closest competitor.
Wow.
Now, those ratings are not, you know, compared to, say, 2000, you know, where they were.
But you own it.
We do. We totally own it, and they're steady. They're not on a cliff and falling every month.
Okay.
So our job, you know, to be realistic, I don't know that we can grow it much more than what we have, but we can maintain it.
Yeah.
And
but they can see you in other venues, like on Facebook, like on streaming things, though, right?
And you know, we've come to accept the fact that we're not a broadcast television station anymore.
Okay.
We are a video provider.
Okay.
That is our bread and butter. Content, and specifically video content.
Okay.
That's what we're known for. That's what we're good at.
Yes.
We're storytellers in a visual medium.
Yes.
So with that understood, that when you leverage your strength like that, that video plays out on every platform that you can think of, whether it's connected TV, whether it's on just watching on your laptop at home, on your iPhone, or what have you.
Right.
The challenge is that you know, there are a lot of screens competing for your attention now. iPads, iPhones, television screens, and everything. We have to fight to be the screen of choice, that primary screen. Right. And you do that by engaging your audience, by making yourself so relevant that the audience can't afford to miss the next segment.
Right.
But from a technological standpoint, and this is kind of what I teased at the earlier. So, you know, we've really gotten aggressive in the last year and a half about expanding our digital video options to this kind of background engine that essentially strings together newscasts and different story segments and presents that so that it's a nonstop news channel online. Well, the next step for that is to actually create, you know, our broadcast spectrum right now. We have channel 6.1, which is KHQ. Right. 6.2 is SWX. Right. If you have an antenna, you can get all of these for free. Right. Well, we don't have a 6.3, unlike every other station in the market, and that's because of bandwidth. We don't have the ability to carve out a
because you're using high def For the first two, and you can't use it for all three.
Exactly,
Yeah.
except that we recently upgraded our encoders so that we could do a third channel, and it won't be in pure high def, but it'll be pretty darn close. And
Okay.
what we're going to do is basically ramp up the efforts that we've been doing to create a 24-hour news presence
Okay.
on digital and put that now on broadcast.
Okay.
So, now that there's no Northwest Cable News that you
Yes.
can sit back and watch, you will have that option in Spokane to watch a 24-hour local news.
Because you can bring
outlet.
things in from your Tri-Cities, you can bring things in from Montana, and all of that.
We can, but the goal is to be hyper-local focused.
Okay.
So that
Okay.
this will be primarily fed with local news gathering. And that means people are going to have to work harder and do more, but we're in that mode, and we have been for a long time now.
Okay.
So that is kind of our goal as of September. That's when we hope to launch
Wow.
our new
Okay.
KHQ Right Now channel.
Okay.
And that will be very unusual nationwide.
And
In
they can
fact,
get that over the air?
for free over the
Okay.
air, or they can stream it, or on a
Okay.
connected TV like a Roku or an Amazon
Right.
Fire Stick. You can have a pure 24-hour local news channel.
Okay.
And for a market of this size, that's something that Spokane should be very proud of. That we have
Absolutely.
something that unusual in the offing.
Wow. September.
September, it's right
What
around the
date
corner.
on September?
Well, I can't promise a date yet because
I was trying to put you in
I'd
the...
love to give you a launch date, and
Yeah.
there still could be some unforeseen kinks that kind of delay that a little bit.
Yeah.
But we've got a plan, and we're moving in that direction.
That is terrific.
Yeah,
And people are hearing it first here.
we're breaking news
Breaking
once again.
news again.
Yep.
In fact, I broke the news about your being general manager.
Yep,
a
you were
few
the
weeks
first.
ago.
You even beat me to the punch.
Yeah,
I didn't
yeah,
even
by
have
a couple
chance to
hours,
post it
okay.
on Facebook yet.
Sorry to do that to you. I'm sorry. It's just, yeah, like it wasn't like KHQ didn't know about it.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
But, to get back, I guess, to
Yeah.
the original question of, where do we take us and how do we stay on top?
You got to be relevant.
Relevance is
Yeah.
such a key role. And you kind of touched on it earlier that, the ownership of our station has, they have a huge stake in the community.
Yes.
The
Yes.
community's success is our success,
Yes.
is the community's success. And this kind of symbiotic relationship, it's very important to me, somebody who serves actively on nonprofit boards and so
Yes.
forth,
Yes.
that we are a champion of this community.
Yes.
If there is any kind of bias that we display whatsoever, it has to be that we want this place to
Yes.
fulfill its potential as a community.
Yes. Yes.
And I will not apologize for being a cheerleader for what we can accomplish all together.
Absolutely.
And that means businesses thriving,
Yep.
the local marketplace thriving, and this becoming the safest place, and that comes back to the journalism and the accountability
Yes.
of law enforcement and so
Yes.
forth.
Yes.
So my goal, and we will know whether we are successful or not, is by these metrics, by how proud people are to live here, and see KHQ as a reflection of those values.
That's
because
great.
we're all in this together. We've heard that how many times now in the last 6 months?
Yeah.
But I mean that on a bigger scale. I mean that we're all in this together as a community,
Right.
to make this the absolute best place it can be.
Absolutely. Well, I'm looking forward to it. I think it's good for all of us. It's good for the community. I think it'll be great for KHQ, but more importantly for all of us that live and breathe and work here and have families here and are near nature and all the other slogans we can say. So
Exactly.
thank you, Neal, for
My
spending some
pleasure.
time.
Thank you
Thanks
for
for
having
breaking
me.
news. That's always kind of fun.
Yeah.
I hope they watch it at KHQ today or
Yeah,
maybe. Yeah.
we'll see.
We'll see. Thank you very much. Best of luck to you in your new role.
Thank
Really,
you.
Very pleased to see you get that. So
I appreciate that.
thanks
Thank
for
you.
watching Business Talks. We'll see you next time right here. Thanks for watching. Ask the host a question, recommend a guest, or check out any of our other programs on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or SpokaneTalksMedia.com. Sponsored by STCU.